The floats I like are just ready rig floats, just a ready rig release. The clip slides on here. Okay, you detach that to your line, and then this is your release right here. Okay. And I always push it down even though it has a spring in it, but that's your release. That's a typical ready rig float right there, release float. The typical ready rig release float. Now, you know, they've had all different sizes and everything over the years. I don't need anything big. I really don't need to keep a very good eye on the float as long as it's out there. Like, you're not watching the float all day like a largemouth bass fishing with a wild shiner, you know. You're basically watching your rod tips most of the time anyway. It's nice to see your float out there so you can manage your lines, but you don't need something like this to keep an eye on all day. Now, over the years, I've kind of tweaked some floats, and what I did was I added this fin years ago, and it's just to a ready rig float, and it does a great job. They're designed to work in pairs. These are called TOS planer floats. They put the TOS in there as a little homage to Team Old School, of course. I don't make a penny selling these. I just wanted these to be out there at the best price so you guys can get them. I just get free floats, that's it. I don't get a dime from Ready Rig. But I wanted you guys to be able to get these, so I told them just put the TOS in there. That's good enough for me. So you clip this on, I'll show you here in a minute, and this angled piece of metal in here, when you put your lines out the back, instead of just having two floats out the back, like say your boat is 8 foot wide and you have a rod on each corner, now your floats are only 8 foot apart from each other. With these here, as you let line out, they plane away from each other. So they're not going to get way out to the side of the boat like a planer board would, but they work great in pairs and they stay away from each other. So instead of 8 feet away, you can get them 18, 80 foot, whatever. As much line as you put out, you can get these further and further away from each other. And what it does is it gives you a hassle-free day. You can let out a bunch of line. You know that even though if you make a lot of zigzags and hard turns, these will stay away from each other. And if you want to get, you know, brave, you can go ahead and put a third one right out the middle because now you have the room. So basically, I keep a bunch of regular ready rig floats for straight, and I keep a bunch of these TOS planer floats here for the corners, and I keep a bunch of just regular inline planers for the sides of the boat. That's all I really carry on the boat for most applications. I will use my trolling motor most of the time to ease us along, but I have anchored in current and just let the boards out, and the current just takes and puts my full spread out if you want. I've anchored up plenty of times and done that. I know guys who fish from the bank, put a board in the water and just let the current take the board out. I've drifted with boards before. So one of the best times that I've ever had on the water, my trolling motor was dead, and I just set out 2 planer boards on each side, and I used my trolling motor, I used my gas engine. I just sat there at the wheel, and I just steered with the wind without the motor running. Just enough wind blowing, you know, the boat is sitting up out of the water, and then just enough wind pushing us, and these sit down in the water. So you're pulling against the water and they go out. They're not very high in the water. They don't catch the wind the same way the boat does. So the boat always goes a little faster. So you really don't need a trolling motor to do it. I know guys that drift off the side of the boat and don't steer at all. Just go with the wind and set a few off the either side and they just pull out nice. So there's a lot of different ways you can use these. Now let me show you how I attach them. Alright, let's start with our rig. Here our main line is 30-pound test, 30-pound mono. I like to use glass beads. I like glass beads because they make a lot of noise. Okay, they wrap against each other pretty nice. If you use plastic, they really don't make any noise at all. And I like to use at least 3 so there's one surrounded, you know, making that nice noise. You can add more if you want. They do add a little bit extra weight too, so if you want your bait to get down a little more, you could add more. I used to add these when I was a largemouth bass fisherman. I used to put these against my hook for a Texas rig and rattle them really nice, you know, for like a crayfish or something like that. But you know, in salt water, these fish are eating lots and lots of crabs, they're eating lobster, any crustaceans on the bottoms, clams, anything that could be rattling around on the bottom, so that extra noise really adds a lot of nice attractant to it. It's more of a natural sound. And you know, when you have eels pull straight down. If they're very lively eels, they'll always try to get to the bottom. And the rocking of the boat and the eel pulling down adds a nice rattle to it. I use them with shad too, and I use them with herring and everything else. But with the eels, really nice combination there. Okay, then I just have a small barrel swivel there. Then we use fluorocarbon usually. This is 25-pound fluorocarbon. It's 30-pound main line with a 25-pound fluorocarbon. This can go anywhere from 10 pounds of fluorocarbon up to 60 depending on when and where we're fishing. Alright, this is a circle hook. I almost always use a circle hook. I use an inline circle hook with my planer boards. Check that. I use an offset circle hook. Don't use an inline with your planer boards. Sorry about that. I use an offset hook with planer boards. You can see it's slightly offset. Okay, so owner MUTU, owner mutu, anywhere from a 4/0 to a 6/0, you know, for eels. And another good reason for the beads is to keep your float or board from sliding all the way down to your hook. So let me show you how we attach. We'll go ahead and attach a planer float first. All you do is clip it on above your beads right here. And when you're fighting your fish, that's what it's going to look like. It's going to slide down to your beads. You won't lose your float, and the float won't go all the way down to the hook. It'll stop there at your beads. So let's say I have an eel on. I'm using eels today, okay? I'm going to go ahead and hook an eel. I'm going to put that in the water, and I'm going to hold my float just like this. And I'll put my reel in free spool. I'm going to go ahead and let out as much line as I want for my depth. Okay, so how deep do I want my bait? Well, I want my bait 10 feet. So I want my eel to swim at 10 feet deep. So I have my float here. My leader is 4 foot, so I'm going to let another 4 foot out of this. I'll pull 4 feet out. So now I have 8 foot total from my float to my eel. And I grab the line here from the rod tip side, not this side here. I grab it from my rod tip side. And one thing I do that seems no one else does for some reason is I put a twist in my line. Just a one or two twists. You see me just spin it like that. And I push the plunger up, and then I go ahead and attach it. Now I will push down on it just to make sure it's in there good. Put a little memory in that rubber. And when I pull, I want to make sure that all my line is on top of the blade here. I don't want the line to go underneath like that. I want it on top like this. And that's it. As it pulls, that little blade will pull out to the side of the boat, and you'll see how nice the twist comes out. When the fish tightens down and pulls that hook and sets the hook, it'll just pull the twist out, and all floats slides right down. So if it's a planer, if it's a float, whatever it is, it's going to slide right down and stop right here. Now another reason I do that little twist is to keep the float from getting hung up. Now the old method was just to go ahead and clip it into the line, and most people do that. They'll clip it in, and that is usually fine. You usually have enough to pull, and that will come out. But if you're on a slow day and that float's been sitting out there, or the board has been sitting out there for a while, this line will create a channel in there. This line is hard. It will leave a channel in that soft rubber over time. And when you open it up, you can see 2 little grooves, one on the top, one on the bottom, where it left a channel. And if it's sitting out there and you're trying to trigger it, or a fish is pulling, it'll just slide down that channel. And it'll just slide. I've seen guys yanking and yanking, and it just will not trip because it's just sliding down that channel. So, you know, most of the times it will pop out, but you saw it actually slid about 2 inches before it came out right there. So if it sat there for a long time, it may have slid a long ways before popping out. With the twist, this way, as soon as the twist comes out, it's released, it's gone, it's right down. So I love that little twist trick. All right, let's pull our float off, and let's try a planer board.